So a lot of people are recording content about how to make $100,000 a year playing poker. And it's time for me to throw my 2 cents in. Is it possible to make $100,000 a year? And maybe the more important question is, even if it's possible, is it worth it? Well, I'm going to tell you it is possible, and whether it's worth it or not depends on you. My name is Rob Gardner. I am a 20+ year poker professional, and I love talking to poker players about their poker dreams, their goals, and how to get most out of the game of poker. And in an era where people dream of playing poker full time and $100,000 a year seems to be an income that people really want to chase to feel comfortable in this modern lifestyle, I want to talk about the ups and downs of what it takes to achieve $100,000 a year and how realistic it is, and more importantly, at what cost. Now, before we get into specifics, let me make it very clear. $100,000 a year is still very achievable in 2025, but it doesn't tell the whole story. For example, put a $100,000 a year poker career up against a $60,000 a year traditional professional job. The average person would go, well, poker is way more fun and an extra $40,000 a year would be really nice. But by the time you subtract self-employment taxes, no benefits like retirement or insurance, vacation pay or sick pay when you need to take a break or you end up being forced to take a break, that $100,000 starts to come down pretty quick. And then depending on what format you play and how much variance there is, there can be a lot of additional pressure that comes with that $100,000 a year poker career that you didn't experience at your boring old desk job sitting in a cubicle each month. So the reality is it's not for everyone, and just having the skills and abilities to make $100,000 a year doesn't necessarily make it a good decision. But for those who are the most determined and most passionate, it absolutely can be reached. Now, there's kind of 3 paths on how you can make $100,000 a year in poker, and I'm going to touch on each of them briefly and the positives and the negatives. Path 1 is the path that I've been on the majority of my career, and that is the online tournament grind. Now, I know everybody thinks that solvers have ruined poker and the game's harder than ever, but listen, 50% ROIs are still at the upper echelon of what's obtainable on low to mid stakes tournaments across the major sites that we have access to here in the United States. And the nice thing about that is it's a very simple math problem. If you have a 50% ROI, then you need to get $200,000 in buy-ins a year in order to make $100,000. If you have a 33% ROI, then you need to get $300,000 in buy-ins to get that $100,000 in profit. Now you can work backwards from here. If you needed to get $200,000 in buy-ins, that's about $4,000 in buy-ins a week, which leads to about 5 sessions of $800 in buy-ins. Now this will be tied to how many tournaments you can play at one time. If you can get to playing 6 to 12 tables comfortably, and you can get up to playing an ABI of $20 to $30, then this is a achievable rate. And there are plenty of soft tournaments across the sites to make that type of volume very possible. But again, there are some challenges here. It's hard for people to play with a very consistent ROI for 52 weeks straight. Downswings are inevitable, and during downswings, we're going to have a tendency to lean into the emotions of those and play more scared, more timid. We're going to lose a little bit of edge. So it's going to be hard to really keep that ROI consistent over large sample sizes. A lot of the tips I've given in previous videos will talk about taking additional breaks, dropping down in stakes when you need to, or just playing less tables to take the pressure off so you can play at a higher level. All of these things become more difficult when you have this requirement of reaching $4,000 in buy-ins every single week in order to hit your goal. So this path is just going to come down to the types of people who can be very consistent and very steady in high pressure environments over long periods of time without getting bored. If I were to approach this as my only source of income, I would lean towards trying to get $5,000 or $6,000 in buy-ins each week so that I had a buffer and could give myself some days and weeks off whenever I felt like it was needed. Similar to banking sick time or vacation pay at work, by putting in some extra hours initially when you're playing well or when things are going well, this would allow me to bank some additional buy-ins so that when I needed to have a light week in buy-ins, it was not an issue. But even in these small fields that I push everybody to play, there's still going to be some variance involved. And the more emotionally attached you are to that variance, the harder this path is going to be for you. Now, the second path that you could make $100,000 in is as a live cash game specialist. Believe it or not, even in 2025, there are places where I've seen consistent win rates of 30, 40, even 50 big blinds an hour, especially in uncapped games. Now, I don't know how long these games are going to last and how long cash games are going to be this fruitful, but we definitely seem to be in an era where lots of people love to play cash, and there's a lot of money running around on these tables getting flung in on all types of crazy hands. The upside of being a live cash game specialist is it's easier to clock in and clock out, especially if you live in one of these more beneficial poker areas with lots of poker rooms. You probably have games available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the flexibility that offers is really convenient when you can maybe squeeze in a 4-hour poker session on a day where you can't put a full day in, and putting in a 4-hour tournament session would be impossible. But this path has its own challenges too. Some people don't have access to consistently soft cash games, or they have access to cash games, but the majority of the players are very tight. They'll only put their chips in with the absolute nuts, and winning big pots is damn near impossible. So if you don't have access to these juicy games, it's going to be really hard to win a win rate that's going to make $100,000 a year possible. Then on top of that, if you're playing in the games that make those rates possible, you need a large bankroll to really play these games professionally. The way that these 40 to 50 big blind per hour win rates are achievable is by being all in 8, 9, 10 times a session. That means every once in a while, you might burn through 7 or 8 buy-ins, which means if you can't bring $2,000, $3,000 to a 1-2, 1-3 game, dust it off and come back and do it again the next day, you're not properly bankrolled for what you need to achieve. This means realistically, you need 30, 40, 50,000, maybe even $100,000 in bankroll to make that type of game very comfortable and emotion-free. And most people aren't even going to sniff a bankroll that large, which makes this past barrier to entry extremely difficult. So while hourly rates tend to be a little bit better in live cash games and also scale better to where you could maybe move up to a 2-5 or 5-10 game and increase that hourly even more, if you can't get access to the bankroll you need to play, this is going to be an extremely uphill battle with an insane amount of risk. That leads me to the third path and most underrated path that nobody talks about, which is having a mixed income poker life. This is where you play poker and make money from poker, but you supplement your income in poker from other things. That is generating revenue within poker as a poker coach, a poker mentor, or perhaps a content creator, getting affiliate deals with some of the major poker sites out there and reselling those sites as an additional revenue generator, or perhaps finding another passive part-time income, maybe in a different niche or hobby that can allow you to generate some of the money you need to take the pressure off of needing to make $100,000 a year. The vast majority of people I know who play poker professionally all say they wish they would have moved to this type of system sooner. And for those of us that have been around longer and experienced Black Friday and have seen the ebbs and flows of different states and legislations being passed and all of the things that can happen with that, poker sites opening, poker sites closing, it's really good to not have all your eggs in one basket. The best part about having multiple income paths is that you can ramp them up or ramp them down pretty easily. So if poker really does start to get lucrative and you can justify putting in more time and backing off your other incomes, you have the freedom to do that with the fallback of going back to your other incomes if things don't go well. But going cold turkey out of a 40-hour-a-week job with benefits into a full-time poker career, only to have some things unexpected pop up and then to try and jump back into that career, is an incredibly difficult thing to do. I've had a lot of friends bring their non-poker skills into the poker industry and have success. Some have been video editors, some have been coaches, some have been website developers, some have been social media experts, some have used poker to sell real estate. There's a lot of ways you can take your other skills and talents into poker and monetize them if you're willing to work at it and connect and network and be creative. So yes, $100,000 a year is still possible in poker in 2025, but you got to pick a path, you got to understand the positives and negatives of it, and you got to embrace it all the way. For those that really want to go after path 1 or path 2, you can do it. but I highly recommend you consider taking path 3. If you have any questions or comments about this video, drop them below. I love to respond to questions and comments from my viewers. And as always, hit that like and subscribe button so you can get notifications when our weekly strategy videos come out and the daily shorts I put out that are talking about my poker journey, my ups and downs, and the way I take path 3 on a daily basis.